everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast from Backlot Banter, where we look at every single Best Picture nominee, and as of today, we have completed our task, because today we are discussing Top Gun Maverick, the 10th and final film nominated for Best Picture in the year of our Lord 2023, and we here at Backlot Banter, my name is Timo, Abram, Tanner, who's wandered off the screen for a moment, and Tucker are going to discuss this film, discuss its chances of winning the top prize, as well as the everything that we like about it. And, well, I think there's a lot to like about this movie. And Tanner,
Is that Rooster?
There we go.
Sunglasses. You got the mustache for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
I'd like it to be known, just before I get any comments about this. There you go. I like those, Tucker. Before I get any comments about this, I had the mustache a year before Top Gun Maverick came out. Like 1 year to the day,
video evidence
by the
of
way.
that.
How about the Hawaiian shirt with the white shirt underneath, though?
I mean, that was sort of pioneered, I think, by the one, the only Miles Teller. But I'm
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt the intro. Please continue, Timo.
well, I don't know how much more introing we need to do. Top Gun Maverick, you've heard of this movie, directed by Joseph Kosinski, of course starring Tom Cruise, Jennifer Connelly, Miles Teller. Tanner is giving Miles Teller right now.
Yes.
But
And may I say, I think he pulls off the mustache much better. I don't think Miles Teller looks very good with a mustache.
That's
I'm so
insane.
honest.
we haven't even done what we talked about last week, and we're already spitting takes about this movie. Last episode on the Quest for the Bestest, we did Women Talking. We talked a lot about it, and I highly recommend you go watch that episode because I think we really dove into this film. We gave it an 8.4, which put it at the number 8th place on our list, so one up from the bottom. While we liked what the film has to say and its place in cinema, I don't really think we were totally in on the execution of it. And but as always, if you want to find out the not me remembering in this moment what we talked about in the episode, go watch it. It's good. And
There's a whole episode's worth of content there.
yeah, that's right.
Can I just say, by the way, and this is already the jocular episode, so we're gonna let our hair down for this episode, okay? Can we just say that when the second lowest score is an 8.4, it's been a pretty goddamn good year for nominees?
Oh,
yeah.
Can we just say that
Oh,
when
yeah.
when a great movie's at the bottom of the list, we're in a fantastic place?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Abram, I think we're also in a fantastic place in terms of comments. You might have one that is worthy of being read aloud.
Yeah. So we're going back to the Banshees of Inisherin for this comment. And this comes from Abby, who writes, Barry Hive, rise up.
Ah, what a great
True
comment.
enough. True enough, Abby.
Intellectual,
We're all here.
resplendent in all its glittering glory.
The comment I'm actually going to read is from another new name. We always love a new name on Quest for the Best. This also comes from Banshee. This is from Tilo. Tilo writes, I did not care
Tilo.
for this movie. I went into the movie thinking it was a
Jennifer
comedy. I would not classify it in that genre. It was depressing. It took me 2 sittings to get through it. If it had not been nominated for awards, I would not have finished it. I think that Carrie Condon and Barry Keoghan's performance here are noteworthy. I did not think that Colin Farrell's or Brendan Gleeson's performance were Oscar-worthy. I did think the cinematography was beautiful. If a friend asked me for my recommendation, I would say skip it.
Wow. Okay.
And you know what I would say? I would say watch the better movie with another handsomer Irish gentleman named Paul Mescal in that film is After Sun, and it should have been nominated for Best Picture.
We don't
I've
even get
seen
to
it since
talk
last
about it.
recording.
Abram, it's too late to campaign for that movie. I don't know. I'm sorry to tell you, buddy.
Oh, just wait until our Oscars predictions video. We'll be talking about After Sun again. We
That's
will.
true. That's true. I mean, we will be doing that. That'll be the next video because we aren't out of the woods in terms of the Oscars yet. We are going to do a final predictions. This week if you're seeing this at time of upload. But exciting stuff. Now, can I just say, it is exciting to be rounding out the 10 nominees with everyone here.
It feels just really nice to be able to, I talk to people about Oscars and just be like, yes, I've seen all the nominees and I have my thoughts on them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got literally 15 hours worth of content on the internet if you want to know my thoughts on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how much we've talked about these nominees this season. Oh my god, it's so much.
Yeah.
I think
Now-
they're worthy. Let's begin. Top Gun. Tanner, you look like you want to get us started. I think it's only right that you begin it all.
Is it plot synopsis time? Is that what time it is?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just want to throw out there. I've seen Top Gun Maverick 4 times now. 3 in theaters. So I feel I'm qualified. And what do we? Where are we in the universe of Top Gun? Okay. We have our main character, the best pilot in the history of piloting jets, Pete Maverick Mitchell. Okay. And we are 30-some years removed from the events of the first Top Gun. And Pete Maverick Mitchell, he's still sort of stuck in the same place. He's still a captain in the U.S. Navy Air Force. And he is called in, after some mishaps with piloting an experimental Dark Star supersonic jet, he is called back to the Top Gun program to teach the impossible mission. An undisclosed country, I think they describe it as a rogue nation, wink wink, is enriching some uranium. And Pete Mitchell needs to educate some of the top graduates of the Top Gun class how to fly that mission, bomb that uranium plant, and get home alive. That's most important for Pete Mitchell. And he meets his best friend, his co-pilot Goose's son, along the way. His name's Rooster. He has an encounter with Iceman, classic character from the first film, and he has a sort of budding or rebutting romance with Penny Marshall, a character who is only mentioned in the first film. But no, some insane things happen up in the air while they're over there in whatever rogue nation they're in. They all make it home safe. We hug, we fly off into the horizon.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And
it's Top Gun, baby.
it's
This
Top
is
Gun,
fucking
baby.
Top Gun.
Tanner, do you want to start with your thoughts? I kind of know what your thoughts are. You've let me know what you think of this movie before, but
Listen. We've done a review on this movie already, back when
Sure.
it came out in May.
It was our second ever weekly movie review. Right after, oh god, what did we watch? Like Crimes of the Future, I think was our first one, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. But no more beating around the bush here. Top Gun Maverick is an incredible experience, head to toe, beginning to end, soup to nuts. I love this film, okay? I love every aspect of it. I love the performances here. I love the direction. I love, oh my god, the sound, the editing, the score, even the Lady Gaga song. I am there for it emotionally when I'm sitting there in that theater, or when I'm sitting at home watching it on my parents' TV because they haven't seen it. This is and I'm going to quote the effervescent Harry Styles here, it's a real movie. It's a
It's a
real
movie.
go to the theater movie. And I just have so much love in my heart for Top Gun Maverick.
That love overflows to the man that lives one room over. My name is Tucker Hazel, and I also love Top Gun Maverick. And not because I have any particular reverence for the original film. In preparation for seeing Top Gun Maverick, Tanner strapped me to the couch and forced my eyes open with toothpicks and said, watch this stupid 80s movie. And I was like, that was fine. I like me some Tony Scott.
Yeah.
I like Tom Cruise a good amount. And a movie about planes is kind of fun, but I really have no reverence for the movie and that original movie. And frankly, I just think this movie does everything that does to the 20 billionth degree. I mean, as a legacy sequel, this is the best of the best. As a revival of an IP, bringing it back to be one of the highest grossing films of all time, this is one of the best of the best. And in terms of revitalizing action cinema, this is, alongside like No Way Home and Way of the Water, these are the biggest movies of this decade so far. But this is the one that feels the freshest. This is bringing back something that's 30 years old that frankly no one really thought was going to come back until the rumblings of it, whatever. And it's just perfect all around. I think this movie is light on story, but that's basically the only thing it's light on, because the action, the editing, the character work in its simplicity, I think, is pretty remarkable. And it's just one of the most impressively conceptual movies I've ever seen. Like, how did they do this? How did they get some of these shots? I have no clue, but it blows me away. It's one of the top pieces of filmmaking of the last few years. I really love Top Gun Maverick.
Abram, what did you think?
I want to read a quotation from the back of my Top Gun Maverick Blu-ray here.
Okay.
Did they get your quote in on it?
What?
Are you on the back of the box there?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
he
wish.
is.
I
Yeah.
that'd be the highest honor of my life. Unfortunately, I have to read this quotation from a outlet that I don't know and a writer that I've never heard of. So hopefully, not like an awful person that we're endorsing on Quest for the Bestest.
Okay.
But
We
with
did
an
the
opinion,
research.
with an opinion like this, I doubt
How
it.
could they be bad?
Yeah.
Joey Parr for Geek Tyrant writes, "Quote: One of the greatest movies ever made." And that's the whole quote.
Hmm.
I could have said that. I could have said that myself because I agree with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could have said it better yourself.
I think not only is Top Gun Maverick one of my favorite films of all time, I think that it is, and Red Letter Media talked about this a little bit in their video.
Mm.
It is so far beyond what we get from blockbuster cinema in general, that I think that by that metric of comparison alone, it's incredible. But what I love about Top Gun Maverick is that it doesn't succeed just by merit of comparison, because it's not a CGI-laden blockbuster or whatever, as a lot of people who use this film to deride other formulaic franchise filmmaking say. I agree with them completely. I wouldn't even... No Way Home can't even touch anything that Top Gun Maverick does. I just want
Well,
to throw that out there.
It is the better movie, but
But what I love about Top Gun Maverick
we'll
more
get to
than
that
anything
when
else,
it's nominated for Best Picture.
Yes.
Top Gun Maverick to me is a timeless film. It's an iconic film. To me, it feels a lot like something like Jaws. I think that this is a perfect 4-quadrant, quotable, technically impressive, completely narratively competent, thematically simple and effective blockbuster. I think that Top Gun Maverick is unimpeachable and one of the best movies ever made.
I hope no one ever tries to impeach it. That'd be strange.
That would be strange. I'm gonna attempt
Timo.
though, because I think
Okay.
I don't know how much I'm swayed by Top Gun Maverick. I've never actually seen the original, so I don't have this comparison, and I'm lacking the development of characters from the beginning. But
Oh.
I think Top Gun
It's all right.
is a damn cool movie. It's just cool all the time, all around, and it's really impressive. I think that this film fits within this year's slate of lineups because it is such a big movie. It was a huge box office success. Arguably, really helped revitalize the theaters, like in this year, and bringing back theater going as a
Yeah.
And Avatar benefited from this movie, I think, coming out a little earlier, and
Probably.
everyone getting primed to go see it in theaters.
Hmm.
But I had a bit of an interesting viewing experience for this movie because earlier in the day, I had to watch a movie for class, and I'm in a German cinema class, and we are in the opposite, the worst time in German history,
Oh,
1933 to
easy to
1940.
get those two things mixed up.
So
I get those two
understand.
opposite words confused pretty easily.
So I watched this Nazi propaganda movie for class, analyze it, how it functions as a
Freudian slip.
Yeah. Whoops. I hate Nazis. Let's be clear about this. I watched this movie.
Thank you, Timo.
I watched this movie, and then I go to watch Top Gear a couple hours later.
Nope.
And I cannot stop comparing them in my head. I cannot view Top Gun as just a film that is just, fun to watch and has some story that I want to think about and some themes that exist. But to me, the movie became so much more watching it in the context. And I saw the propaganda for all of its, everything that it's trying to say. And I don't think that it discounts the movie. I don't think we should say that we can't consider this film for any merits because it exists as a propaganda movie, which I believe it does. That's its purpose in the world, is to further America's needs. But it just kind of sat weirdly with me in terms of like the story and the themes, since they were less. It was much more about the action. And I found that the propagandistic elements of the film were really noticeable, and they were shining at me all the time. But that doesn't mean I was like not laughing my ass off and being like, oh, that was so cool when the jets fly by. I just found myself being very aware that I am watching a movie that is designed to make me think that the military and that bombing people in another country are cool things, when I don't actually think that. So
No, Timo, you misunderstand. They don't bomb people. They bomb a uranium plant, actually.
They bomb
and
a
this
box.
is an unmanned, totally autonomous uranium plant
Yes,
Yeah.
completely automated.
So-
in a the rogue country that is very
Rogue
much
Nation.
very much designed to look like Iran or China or Russia, depending on who you hate at this given moment. I
I
find.
actually,
Go ahead, Abram. Go ahead.
yeah, I actually think that this is a very interesting place to begin the conversation. And I want to unpack this a little bit because you make a compelling point, Timo, but not one that I agree with. I'm just pulling up. I'm not going to read out this person's name because I don't want to give them the attention, but we got a pretty insane comment about this person's thoughts on the Best Picture slate.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry. No, I deleted the comments. I
oh,
reported
okay.
them because it was
Okay.
that insane.
right, but
Yeah.
but the reason I even bring it up is because this person is basically talking about how woke is also very anti-Semitic in
Yes.
certain respects,
Yes.
which was the really egregious part. But they're just basically talking about how woke the Best Picture slate is and everything. And I made the joke in reply, but they didn't say that Top Gun Maverick was great because it had no leftist politics and it was the big non-political conservative masterpiece of the year.
Mm-hmm.
No,
In
that
jest.
honor went to Leslie from them.
that's exactly
Apparently.
right.
But what's interesting, but the function of my joke is that ultimately this film was quote unquote reclaimed by the right in a lot of ways, as being this paragon of blockbuster filmmaking that didn't have all of these woke elements that Hollywood's always putting into its cinema. And Timo, I think you're right that the film goes so far out of its way to paint a scenario wherein we're not fighting a named target, we're just fighting an enemy of America.
Mhm.
I think you're right in that it becomes on a sort of premise level very propagandistic. I think you're right. But I also think that at a certain point, and I'm gonna be a bad college student, I'm gonna be a bad leftist, I'm gonna be
All
bad,
right,
bad
here we
all these
go.
things and say it doesn't fucking matter. I think that where I come down on the politics of Top Gun Maverick or the lack of politics of Top Gun Maverick and all the people chatting in my ear saying a movie that isn't political is inherently political, yada yada yada.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I don't think that a film having a more pro-America point of view, at least in my opinion, is an inherent negative against it. Because I think that the movie is not necessarily concerned with that. We see a lot of films that are right-wing, that have conservative values, and they suck because they're trying to espouse this stuff that is stuffy and boring.
The Daily
Top-
Wire makes a lot of those, as I understand.
Right. Right. And my point and my,
When's
what
their
I said-
Top Gun parody? It's coming. You know it.
No, because they all like the movie. They're not going to parody it. So
Okay,
what I was saying as I opened is that this really is a 4-quadrant blockbuster. I saw this film for the second time in theaters with everybody from my grandparents in their 80s to my sister who was 16 at the time. Everybody across gender, across generation loved the film. And I do think part of it, cynically, is that it's a very fun-loving, grab a beer, grab a hot dog, down-home American movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that it's important to contextualize the propagandistic elements of it, but for me, I just simply can't care. And maybe that makes me a bad critic, but I just don't care. I'm sorry, I simply don't care.
I want to just add a little explanation in that because I was watching a real ass propaganda movie for class.
Top Gun.
This Nazi movie, and then I don't actually like, I don't want to make the comparison between Top Gun and a Nazi propaganda film. I don't think that's like exists. I don't think that's there, but just
It's interesting.
I had trained my brain to be looking for aesthetic details of propaganda in a movie, and then I go watch this other movie, and then my brain is continuing to pick out all these details. Yeah, like the uniforms are always perfect, and they fly the cool planes, and a number of times a character stands up in front of a big giant flag that's like waving behind them, and
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
these are not, this is not a story beat or a character note that is propaganda, but this is a filmmaking choice that serves to further the propaganda of the film and further the political messaging of, hey, the army, the Navy rather does good stuff, and they're very skilled individuals that work there who can achieve, the unthinkable with the right training and the right jet, I guess.
Brother fellas, I can't believe that we started the conversation on Top Gun Maverick in this specific place.
Leave it
It's
to
usually-
me,
West,
Tanner.
baby.
Leave it to
Yeah.
me to do this.
like usually it takes us 45 minutes, an hour plus to get to the political messaging of a film, but we started hot to trot right off the bat with Top Gun, and I'm gonna change up the conversation here.
Go for it.
Because I'm just gonna list off the nominations, and we can start wherever we want. Okay, I'm not gonna acknowledge the past 5 minutes. Okay. Top Gun Maverick was nominated for Best Picture, naturally, obviously, clearly, because we're talking about it here today. Also nominated in Best Film Editing, Best Sound, Best Visual Effects, and Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Original Song for Hold My Hand by Lady Gaga.
And not nominated for cinematography.
Notably snubbed in cinematography.
Let's start there because that is where I really love this movie. And the little bit of the production history that I know is that their ability to cram like 5-6 cameras into a F-18 jet was really... It was super helped by the new... I just dropped some coins on the ground. Don't worry about it.
It's okay. Hey, don't worry about it, folks.
Oh, Mr. Moneybags over here worrying about propaganda. Coins are literally falling out of his pockets.
Yeah.
Capitalism, motherfucker.
So much of this film is shot practically, and you can tell, and it's awesome to see Tom Cruise like in a fighter jet. I don't know if he's like actually piloting it or if he's in one of the 2-seater versions. I don't care. It's awesome. It looks great. And only because of today's technology and these Sony cameras where you can take the sensor block and split it from the actual like thinking block that it's allowed to they can even make this happen like physically. So the technological improvements that this film specifically gave to the industry, I feel like are worthy of a nomination in cinematography. Yeah. But apparently not, I guess.
Apparently not, indeed. Cinematography is obviously fantastic. I mean, you feel like you're up in those F-18s, and it's because you
feel like Top Gun.
You feel like you're Top Gun, like you're Captain Top Gun. You are locked in on these actors, experiencing these G's, these forces of gravity and speed in real time. And it is incredible. And obviously that combines with the editing and the sound and everything like that, the visual effects even. But just the visual language with which Top Gun Maverick conveys its action, conveys its emotional beats even. I mean, we were talking about how this film is grab a beer and a hot dog and you sit down with the whole fam and watch this thing. But we use like aggressively golden hour settings and camera methods and stuff like that, and it makes you feel. This movie makes me feel like I'm watching a summer blockbuster. It makes me feel warm inside and outside when I'm watching this thing. When I'm watching that beach scene, I'm like, God, it's summertime, baby. I want to be playing double football with all my best buds on the beach. And it comes across in how the camera is utilized inside those action sequences and outside of them.
Yeah. Can I say my piece?
Yes, go, Tucker.
All right. A guy was opening his mouth, and I was like, I'll open my mouth faster and say some words instead. The thing that most impresses me about Top Gun is actually not the way that they were able to get the cameras into the cockpit, because I think that feels the most effortless. I know factually that it was innovative, that was the innovation that it brought to our industry, that it was incredibly difficult to do, and that it's probably the most impressive practical element of this film. But for me, it is the wide shots of these planes and the skies and the mountains and stuff that are either real cameras on a real plane, and then other real plane is going really far away and getting this really wide shot that's super steady, or it's some amalgam of computer generation that are impossible to tell because it is so seamlessly integrated. But those are the shots that really wow me. Of some of the widest shots that I've ever seen, one in particular being in that opening sequence where he's trying to hit 10 Gs, and he's like going around the curvature of the earth, and the smoke trail coming out of the back of his jet is like
Gs. He has to hit the 10
whatever.
In
whatever.
different
It's
part of the
fast.
movie.
It's fast. Doesn't matter. That single shot is one of the most impressive shots I've ever seen, and it continues to deliver. I think that is the most impressive shot in the movie to me. But in terms of how it's filming combat and filming these environments, it makes me feel like I'm watching as a bird, as a plane, these action sequences
Superman.
Instead of I'm leaping over tall buildings and wearing a pair of underpants. Ideally. But I really think that is where the cinematography of this film blows me away because the breadth and width that it captures this action is unlike any action film I've seen, because since the early 2000s, action has become much more close-ups, a lot more editing, cutting on impact, getting up in the faces of characters, and that is sort of a problem with the original Top Gun, is it is very cutty. It's very going shots of just the cockpit, just the gun, and there wasn't the technology to capture the width of aerial battles and dogfighting, but this film does that so incredibly well that is the element that blows me the most away with its visuals.
Yeah, I think we've touched on a number of really important points already. As it pertains to sort of how the camera navigates space, I think what's really effective about Top Gun, and this speaks a little bit to also the brilliant editing of the film, which we can talk about separately, but the ways in which we're able to juxtapose the claustrophobia of the cockpit against these wide open spaces, to me, is where that mastery lies. So I sort of synthesize what you guys are saying.
Perfect.
In that when you're in that cockpit, you really feel the canopy over the head of the pilot, and the ways that they're thrown against it or pushed back into their seat. It's very physical, as you're saying. It's very steady, but there's a real sense of kinetic movement in the frame, and I think that's accentuated by how tight things feel. I also think about the moment when we are booking it for the target on the actual run, and we go under the bridge, and there's the shot, I think it's of Rooster as he comes up from under the bridge, and we see him flip vertical back to horizontal, and he looks over his shoulder. And the ways that the shot is composed, so you see his face in the cockpit, and then you see this narrow gap the plane came out of. It's this excellent feeling of claustrophobia, which is perfectly balanced against, as you're saying, these hyper wides. And the Dark Star sequence is a great example of it. I'm always taken by the shot of the Dark Star falling from the sky.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's a great shot.
It's totally beautiful. The other shot from that sequence that I love, and it speaks to what Timo's saying with the practicality of the film, is the moment when Ed Harris gets out of his truck at the checkpoint. And the plane, and this speaks to the practicality of it, because when the roof flies off that building, that was not supposed to happen. This was one of the this is one of the really popular.
I laughed at that at that gag. I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, this is one of the sort of. There's a lot of popular behind the scenes trivia.
Ed Harris is stronger than a roof.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some of that behind the scenes stuff, because I think it makes this film so much richer.
Yeah,
it is that feeling. That knowledge that roof really flew because they really took this fucking plane off in the desert. It's incredible. And you can definitely feel not only Tom Cruise's hand in the construction of this film. Of course, we can't discount what Joseph Kosinski brought as the director, but we can't also discount what Tom Cruise, and who's also credited in this film, Christopher McQuarrie, who does Mission Impossible, what that duo brought to Joseph Kosinski and what the three of them brought to Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
That film succeeds because the aerial stuff, they just took the time and they just made it just great. And so, yeah, I think that you're exactly right.
Abram, you brought up Christopher McQuarrie there, and he is, of course, one of the credited writers on this film. And I feel like another important... We talked about the nomination that it didn't get, and I next want to talk about the surprise nomination that it did. That is the nomination for adapted screenplay. And I know there are some detractors of the nomination for Top Gun in Best Adapted Screenplay. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the writing of this film, because here's what I would say. And we brought it up earlier, how this film compares to the typical output of blockbusters, summer blockbusters, whatever you want to call them. And I feel like a lot of times these blockbuster scripts, obviously they can be lackluster at times and, underwhelming at the best of times, but there's not enough credit given to a action movie when it has a really good script. What we focus on is the editing, cinematography, acting, maybe even direction, but there's not a lot of credit given to the screenplay of coming up with these moments and putting them to screen and pacing them out in such a manner that you set things up and they are paid off later in the film.
True, yeah.
And Top Gun Maverick is such a masterclass in that. It is a masterclass in setup and payoff. It is a masterclass in character arcs. And these aren't like, this isn't like a tar level character study by any means. But it is so adept and knowledgeable in how it constructs its characters, how it constructs its arcs and these relationships, and how they pay off, and how they have their peaks and their troughs at key moments in the film, at just the right moments in the film. And I'm here to say Top Gun Maverick has an incredible screenplay.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And on this rewatch, this was my second time watching the movies. God forbid I ever watch this movie not on the silver screen. I got to see it both times.
Yep.
In the theater. But really paying attention to the action side of this screenplay with those setups and payoffs that I think are worked so effortlessly into each action sequence that when you get to the last action sequence, which is like a third of the film or whatever, you feel like you've learned so much about what the ability of these people, their planes, the situation that they're in, and all of it feels like you're in there with them and you've learned alongside them. And it's because of all of these training sequences that are equally as impressively shot and have equally a good amount of character moments. And oh my god, this person almost died, and the birds hitting the plane, crazy sequence.
Bird strike.
It's these moments of raising and lowering the hard deck, of learning to go between a small space, of making sure that you're on your buddy's side to pay attention to everything, that when we're going on these steps in the end of the film, in that trench run into the last action sequence, they're set up so effortlessly from before that I'm like, yeah, okay, they really thought this through, and every element is set up and paid off in really subtle ways, because it's not like, I mean, it's pretty overt. Like, okay, we're going to talk about the hard deck. This is the sequence about the hard deck and going super low, and then, okay, in the final action sequence, we have to talk about the hard deck. But it's like, yeah, of course they have to talk about the hard deck when they're training, and that's going to be this action sequence. But then that actually is really important, and it comes around later on. I really love how they balance these elements.
Well, I just think that the pure action writing, like literally what happens, like who flies, what turns upside down, who ejects from the plane, like that is very well done. And it's helped in that it's shot very cleanly and it's very easy to see what's happening. I didn't really notice so much planting and payoff while I was watching it, but I find right now that I'm like, yeah, this stuff that you're talking about was that these training sequences made that final moment feel so powerful and feel like a culmination, really, when we get to the end, because you're right, we learn with the characters and then get to see them survive or fail.
Yeah, I think what Top Gun's screenplay is missing in density, it makes up for in elegance. I think that it is so intentional with everything that it puts to page, and then what is translated to screen from that. What I want to think about is audience a little bit, because audience, whenever you're writing anything, is very important. But I think, especially when you're making a blockbuster, audience is especially important. And when we think about these legacy sequels, there's a certain set of audience expectations that you have to write around. One that I watched recently in preparation for a film that I will have hopefully loved by the time you see this, Creed 3, when I was watching Creed 1. The
Another
way
great legacy sequel.
Yeah, phenomenal film also, and sort of watching Creed and watching this and looking at screenwriters understand that we need to pay homage to what came before, and in large part adopt a formula that was set forth and bring it forward in a way that pays off the audience that you've accrued, but also to something new. I think that's a very challenging thing to do, and we've seen that succeed, we've seen it fail. And I think what's great about Top Gun Maverick is it is a legacy sequel. And if you have seen Top Gun, it's very clear that so many of the beats are reproduced in the screenplay. But what makes it really masterful to me, and I keep harping on some of the same points, but I think they're important too, is that it's also written to be accessible and enjoyed by literally everybody.
Yeah.
When you look, as you're saying, Tanner, about the construction of the film, on my third viewing for this review, I was actually taken by how quickly it felt like we are on that helicarrier, or sorry, that's not a helicarrier. Is it? I don't know. It's a ship in the water. It's a ship with the planes on it in the water. Aircraft carrier. I was like, man, we got here.
Brain.
We got here quickly. And I think that's a testament to how the screenplay is written to pace out all of the moments you'd want and intermingle them in a way that keeps the forward momentum of the film. It really is mostly training, but the training is action on a level commensurate to the final run, and
Yeah.
the training becomes a conduit for character relationships, but it also becomes a plot idea reflected upon by characters at the hard deck bar on the boat between Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly. Everything is so succinctly tied into each other, and it moves at the right pace. While, as you're saying, Tanner, rewarding people not only with the callbacks on an action level, but also just on a sort of humor and character writing level.
Yes.
This is the only face I've got motif.
Yep, that line comes back.
It's not the plainest to pilot.
Exactly.
Again, these are simple ideas, but there's something to be said for a film executing on simple ideas in a way that empowers the audience and compels the audience and keeps them entertained for the entire runtime. It's not a complicated screenplay, but complexity isn't always better. So I'm with you, Tanner. I think this is a much, much, much deserved nomination.
Abram, you brought up how, we have this confluence of plot and action and character, and I just really need to applaud how Top Gun Maverick's screenplay finds a way to intermingle all of these things. An action beat serves as a plot beat and a character beat. A character beat can be a plot beat and in an action moment. They're all in one at times, essentially. You obviously have the action moments, such as when Maverick and Rooster are basically have their dick measuring contest in the air when they're doing the Cobra maneuver down towards the ground. They are literally racing each other to crash their planes into the ground. They are so locked in on trying to, I don't know, just in their complex feelings towards one another, that they are careening towards self-destruction, and they have to find a way to remedy this in some way. But the power dynamic is there. Maverick is older, Maverick has more experience, Maverick is the teacher, and Rooster ends up resenting him because of this, because of the power dynamic. But Maverick sort of feels sorry that there is this dynamic between them. He just wants to protect Rooster. He feels he needs to, because it's Goose's son. He feels responsible for Goose's death. And we follow these characters throughout the film, and the relationship is interesting, but not at all complex, like you were saying, Abram. And it doesn't need to be. It is a surrogate father and his found son, essentially, and then subsequently a surrogate son and this found father, who have to figure out how to overcome this impasse, this emotional impasse that is keeping them apart, when they have this one true point that they care about each other. They care about Goose. They care about the best friend, the father that they lost. And it's just beautiful. I mean, it pays off in such a beautiful moment that I actually saw going around on Twitter recently, it makes me cry every time when they land back on the aircraft carrier, and he says, thanks for saving my life out there. And Rooster says, it's what my dad would have done. Come on. That's an all-timer payoff to that relationship, to the little seeds of dialogue planted that are a callback to the original Top Gun, but also are planted a number of times in Maverick, which is the talk to me, Goose, talk to me, Goose. Maverick says about 2-3 times in this.
Talk to me, Dad.
Come on, man. That's the last time that we hear a variation of that line, is when Rooster says, talk to me, Dad. Fantastic stuff. You get the payoff at the end. Maverick and Rooster have reconciled. They're together once again. We have a surrogate father, surrogate son. It's fantastic. They're hanging out at the end, fixing airplanes together. Chef's kiss.
And then, of course, Rooster sees the pictures that he has of Goose, recognizing the care that Maverick had for his father, but his family overall, because he talks about how one of the last things that Meg Ryan said to him was that don't let my son fly. And then he's been wrestling with these emotions, but then he sees that picture of Rooster and Maverick, taken by who, where, doesn't matter. It's right up there alongside them, and it's like, okay, we got, that's how the movie opened, and that's how it closes. I think that's very poetic in that way, and I do think that as a legacy sequel, it handles itself very well in terms of the impact of Goose's death is, for me, basically really the only thing that I really care about. from that
Mhm.
from that first movie. It's really one of the only real story points, but they recognize the impact that losing a best friend has on someone. And I've never really seen a film delve so deeply into this like generational trauma, transitioning from losing his father, not wanting to protect the son, like, but through a friend father son dynamic. Like,
Mhm.
it's really unique in that way, and it builds on what the first movie did in such a compelling way of giving Maverick more stakes. He realizes that he can't be as brash and hot-headed anymore, and he has to respect and defend the people that he cares about, because that's what got him his friend killed in the first one. And I think that gives him a lot more character here. I don't really care about Pete Maverick Mitchell in that first movie. He's a hot-headed guy. He's got a rivalry. He's got a best friend, and he just loves flying planes. But in this one, he is a guy with a history. He doesn't want to move on because he loves his job and he knows that's what he's best at. He doesn't want to get promoted and have to work a desk job or order other people around. And
Mhm.
what we see his arc really is, of course, with Rooster, allowing him to sort of leave his protection and go on and being his own man by allowing him to fly, but also that he has the ability to be a teacher, because Maverick is a guy who's so set in his ways, and he thinks like, yeah, no, I'm the best guy, and I'm okay with just being that and not letting anyone else really into my wheelhouse, but allowing this group of not really misfits, because they're all kind of like the best, and then there's Bob, and I love Bob, but allowing them into his heart and like teaching them what he can and learning from them, that is his real arc of that there is this collaboration that can be used. And I think
Mhm.
that is really powerful and adds so much more to Maverick as a character, and watching that grow across the course of the film, I absolutely.
I do want to. I want to talk about Pete Maverick Mitchell, excuse me, as a character. But I do want to throw it over to Timo, because I want to hear your thoughts on the character stuff here.
Yeah, well, I think that in not knowing these characters or not knowing this backstory, right? I was confused at times in the movie, but I wasn't confused by the end. Everything was made clear for me. The relationships, I was able to figure them out and be like, okay, oh yeah, okay, so these two characters have history, and I thought that the relationships blossom and this team comes together in a nice way. The film manages to make this ensemble led by Tom Cruise, but an ensemble that's flying around. All the flyers all feel unique. They've got unique personalities. All the nicknames are funny. I just kind of like the idea that every single person in the Army and the Navy and the Air Force has just like a nickname that they get to toss out all the time.
And that's
And-
basically the only way that you know them. Like, they even call each other that in their like private conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is funny. And I think that the romance is a little just kind of like once we step foot on the moving walkway of it, we're off, and there's no way we're going in any other direction. And so part of my I have kind of an issue with this movie when we're not flying, though. I kind of am not super into the style that this film takes while it's giving us like just narrative and plot on the ground. It kind of feels to me, or felt like while I was watching it, like like the entire thing was in montage, and that the characters we like flow into a scene, and we like cut, skip forward, and now we're into this new part of the scene that the characters then are now like I guess the bar scene where he has to pay for all the drinks kind of felt like that. I think it actually has to do with the sound of the movie, why it seems so much like a montage during the scenes that were on the ground, but that kind of was taking up a lot of my brain space when I could have been thinking about characters. The characters are nice. I like to watch them. They're good, they work. I think that's how I would characterize it.
I do think that that there is a cynical function to that, Timo, and I do think you're right. I also like the characters a fair amount, but it's very similar to how Jaws is one of my favorite films, but I don't really care a whole lot about Brody. I feel similarly to a lot of the characters here in that both screenplays recognize on a cynical level these characters have a function to fill. These relationships are here to tick a box for a portion of our audience, and we're going to tick those boxes. And I think Maverick does it effectively. But there is no doubt in my mind, really, that Jennifer Connelly and Tom Cruise's relationship is there to service all of the people who are brought by their spouses to the plane movie to get the romance subplot. But I don't also necessarily think that that's a problem, because again, it's a film that's meant to be for everybody. And I totally get where you're coming from, Timo, about the ways that it feels like editing is constantly pushing us along. I think one example, and maybe one of the only times that the film I'm sort of taken out of the film, is when Rooster is performing at the piano, and we cut through the window to Tom Cruise, and then we cut back to the death of Goose, which is of
very
course
ham-fisted.
Right, it's
Very
a functional.
ham-fisted.
It's a functional necessity to get that information to viewers like yourself, Timo, who haven't seen Top Gun. But I think it is also, it's also emblematic of sort of a philosophy to how the film does deliver information, as you're saying, which is there's a point to all of it. We're gonna hit the point, we're gonna hit the beat, and we're gonna get to the next beat. I think that's part of the reason why it feels so quick when we get to the aircraft carrier. But again, I appreciate the pointedness with which it happens, and I do think, to Tanner's point, there's a general earnestness to all of it, and a certain, again, iconic feeling to watching Jennifer Connelly and Tom Cruise on a boat and them bantering a little bit, or him jumping out the window and running into the daughter through the kitchen window. It's a well-framed gag. It's all lighthearted. The film knows when to lean into those emotional moments and when to pull away from them. It lingers with something just long enough for you to understand it before getting into the next thing.
I gotta throw up a yellow card on us calling the Great Balls of Fire cutaway ham-fisted and sort of detracting from that moment. I honestly think that is a very confident moment of filmmaking, of decision-making there, because as Abram just said, this movie has fantastic moments of gags, of earnestness, of all this stuff, but also knows when to do our emotional beats. And it would have been so easy to just... Everyone remembers when... I don't remember the name for Goose's actor from the original, I'm sorry. Everyone remembers when Goose sang Great Balls of Fire in the original Top Gun. Let's have Miles Teller do it in this one. It'll be a great fun moment for everybody in the theater. And remember that nostalgia moment. And there are those in this film. I'm not going to say that there's not, but they're sparing, I would say. And they're done with a steady hand. However, what instead we do is that Maverick is outside of the window. He's looking in. He looks at Rooster's face for maybe the first time in years, or maybe ever, as an adult man, because he just, all we know about him is that he pulled his papers at the academy when they never met face to face, as we understand it. And he looks at his face, and what does he remember? He remembers what happened to Rooster's father. He remembers what he feels responsible for in that moment, and it clues us in so easily and so effectively into what Pete thinks about Rooster, what he feels he owes him, what he feels that their relationship is. And instead of just a fun Great Balls of Fire singing montage, which they shot and which you are able to watch
Which I have seen.
If you want to, they made the decision to leave that out of the film. You leave it as a supplementary material for audiences who do want to see it, but instead give you this this harrowing moment of Maverick sort of reconciling with PTSD he has associated with this moment, with Rooster as a person, with the memory of his father. And I love that moment. I think it's a fantastic moment. And we also get that moment of, if we want to talk about the romance a little bit, of Penny looking out the window and seeing that look on his face and be like, oh, Pete has changed. He's not the same, fly by the seat of his pants, hot-headed dude that I remember, who took me up in a fighter jet and got kicked out of San Diego. No, he's changed. He's aged. He's coming to terms with the mortality of his friend, of course, but also of his own mortality. I think that's a pervasive theme of this film, is death, is of, finding your place, being where you belong, and do you belong in that place forever? Is it a form of stasis that you can come to as a person, or do you have to grow? do you have to leave that place and face something unfamiliar? And how do you become confident in that decision?
Yeah, I think you're right, Tanner. I think part of it just for me subjectively comes down to when you have a film that looks this beautiful and modern and then you suddenly intercut it
Okay,
with
well, fair
80s
play.
film footage. Obviously it's unavoidable, but it speaks to me of how it's time to transition from that moment into the information the audience needs and let's move
Okay.
through it.
Yeah.
But to me, again, that's such an exception to the rule because I want to talk about editing, and as it relates in part actually to the psyche of characters, because the moment that actually made me quite emotional in this rewatch, I had never noticed before, is the bird strike sequence, which is already a beautifully constructed moment wherein we see panic in Maverick as he sees echoes of what's happened to Goose. At the same time, just on an audience level, the way we sort of are leaned into and pulled away from the anxieties of Coyote's potential death is very effective. Because he goes into G-Lock, there's a moment when we don't understand what's going on. Tom Cruise understands it. We're clued in. Give me tone. Suddenly the sound is very loud and it's very overwhelming with my heartbeat. But then he pulls out a G-Lock. We're fine. And then the bird strike happens and the soundtrack is back.
Yeah.
But then in a moment of beautiful editing, I think, a perfect cutaway, after we've pulled and everybody is fine, plane crashes into the mountain, and we cut to Rooster. And the ways that we then link what Tom was feeling in that previous scene to the idea that he saw Rooster in that plane instead of Coyote, it's beautifully done to just cut from this emotionally complicated sequence with the G-Lock and the bird strike right to Miles Teller's face. This close, intimate shot of him looking down with this dark color palette room. I think that's so effective about telling us what Maverick is feeling and how we should feel through a simple cut. I think that editing nomination, I know that Everything Everywhere is picking up a lot of steam for editing.
Yes.
But I also think that the editing in Top Gun Maverick is just incredible.
Yeah.
It is.
That sequence is also great. I think it's amazing as well, but it is simultaneously a look into Maverick's psyche, as you're saying, but I think it's also the moment where Rooster realizes that these people around him that are all best of the best, that are literally picked because they all were the top of their class and they're all just palling around knowing they're the best, that even their skill cannot beat randomness. They could not predict that these birds were going to fly into their plane. And for me, Phoenix and Bob are two of my favorite side characters in the film, and seeing them almost die. I mean, there's shots in there where I think they're dead. And when you cut away to Rooster and he's sad, I'm like, they might be dead. And I think the first time I thought they were dead for like five whole minutes or whatever. And learning that alongside Rooster, that even the best of the best, they're mortal as well. They are, yes, it's the not the plane, it's the pilot, but sometimes even the pilot can have problems and can die. Like they're human too. And learning about their mortality and taking this whole situation more seriously is what I think humbles Rooster as a character, because he is pretty cocky up to this point. He's pushing back against Maverick, and especially in that Cobra going down towards the ground moment, and the numerous moments where he's trying to outdo Maverick, trying to show him that he's just as great of a pilot as he is or his father was, but that Rooster and Bob and Phoenix are goofy side characters that they're endeared to you because of how silly they are, but they've got their skill and they've got this nice camaraderie. But we could have lost them, and I love the fact that we are able to see simultaneously Mav's thought process, but also Rooster come to Jesus moment of, oh God, this could have gone very badly.
I mean, lots. I think that the theme that you bring up, Tanner, of death and like when Maverick is like, it's not about completing the mission. He never really phrases their final mission as completing it. It's always about bringing everyone back. It's always like, we've got to make sure we're training not to blow this uranium factory up, but we're training so that you don't get killed when you try to
It's
do
where
it.
they're crafting uranium.
The uranium
They're
craftery.
making it. There's a bunch of dwarves in there. They're banging away,
Since
making
there is a
uranium.
break here, I gotta say, when he's talking to John Hamm, and John Hamm's like, "You gotta teach him how to fly the mission and do the mission," and Maverick says, "And come home, sir." I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man,
Great
that's
moment.
a great moment.
Well,
Fucking A.
Because when I'm watching a movie, a military movie especially, that is where my brain is at, is that these characters are engaged in a particularly life-threatening and is very high chance that we see somebody die because that is their profession. You know, to be a soldier is to go and die for your country. And so the theme of the movie that is about coming to terms with the loss that you've had, but then also like preventing it and maybe accepting the possibility of loss, but trying your absolute hardest. You know, don't think, just do, so that it doesn't happen.
Another great continuous callback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring up the whole themes of mortality and anyone is at risk and things like that, because I think that plays directly into Rooster's psychosis, like Tucker was talking about. I mean, what do we know about from the very moment that he is introduced? And I gotta bring up another fantastic side character, Hangman. Hangman is pestering him and belittling
He's the
him
best.
because what do we know about Rooster from Hangman's pestering? We know that he hangs back, that he's not a risk taker in any sense of the word, really, because he has that memory of his father dying flying that plane. So yes, he's following in his father's footsteps, but he's never wants to take that jump, like Hangman says, and he says it in a belittling way. And Maverick recognizes that as well. He's like, being a pilot, that's what you got to do. You got to trust your gut. You just got to go for it. Don't think, just do. And that comes out a number of times, and it comes out largely when Rooster is directly interacting with Maverick. Like Tucker brought up the Cobra maneuver and how that is a moment of Rooster going for it. How he's pushing himself outside of his comfort zone. And what does it? It's his anger at Maverick in that moment. It's always Maverick and Rooster's relationship that brings that out of Rooster. And at the very end, you know, of course, I bring up mortality and I bring up all the side characters, and we brought up editing since we wanted to talk about that. I think the perfect encapsulation of how well edited this film is when all four planes we're in Coffin Corner, okay, and it's slowly built up. I don't even know how long that scene is. It could be 30 seconds, it could be 2 minutes. I couldn't tell you because of how in I am in that very moment. When we are building up, there's SAMs flying through the air, where in each of the different cockpits, where they're screaming, they're hitting flares, they're like, "Look, on your six, I got you covered, negative contact." And then what do? Boom, we go wide shot. We see smoke in the air, missiles,
I'm getting chills.
flares, planes flying everywhere. We
It's so
see
badass.
the absolute,
It's so fucking cool.
we see the absolute chaos that is this scene that our heroes are in. And my God, and then immediately after that, Maverick gets shot down. Our golden god, the best pilot that we've ever seen behind a stick in that plane, gets shot down.
Behind a
we are at
Lockheed
loss.
Martin conspicuously branded stick.
Well, all right, fair. Team, I'll let you sneak those in because we're praising the film so much. But
Why is there Lockheed Martin product placement?
I don't even know what Lockheed Martin is.
so you can go
make
and buy
planes.
some fine Lockheed Martin products as me, an average moviegoer.
I've seen Top Gun Maverick. Today I will purchase an F-35.
Yeah. But yeah, yes.
You're right,
Jokes aside, that is such a fan-fucking-tastic
Also,
moment.
another great, one of my favorite shots in the movie comes in that sequence is when someone's out of flares and another one goes above them and drops flares behind them, and the explosion's coming up and someone's above the other plane, like, whoa, whoa. God damn, I love that moment.
Tanner, thank you, because the fucking countermeasures sequence is one of my favorite sequences in film.
Mhm.
Jesus Christ, so good.
To me,
It's so intense.
Yeah, in terms of establishing stakes in your action sequence, to me, this is right up there with another film starring Val Kilmer more, and that's Heat. The shootout in Heat coming out of the bank. what I think is great about both of those is that, as you're saying, Tanner, we spend so much time building to it
Mm-hmm.
because we are set up, as you guys are saying, from the beginning of training with this idea that you guys are in serious jeopardy. There's a notion of serious jeopardy.
Maverick says someone's not coming back from this one.
Yeah,
He says that line when he first learns about the mission.
and we hammer
Well,
that home.
just the mission design means that we have like an extended sequence of stakes. We got a lot of stakes.
Yeah.
We have our 2 miracles, and then we're in the shit pan because now we've got to deal with all these SAMs after we have succeeded. You succeed, but you don't succeed until you get home, I think is kind of what the design of this whole sequence is trying to say.
It happens again too, but sorry, Abram, continue.
Exactly, because not only do we have that long sequence, that flight to the target, we make a specific note in both the dialogue and the editing to show these incredibly imposing low-angle shots of the SAM launchers several times. So we're not only aware of them from the simulated things on the maps and screens, but then we see them, and the threat becomes real.
As they move and stuff, yeah.
Yes. And then just that fucking chaos of everybody. Because what's great about deploying countermeasures as a device for action is that there's so much goes into it. You call out the countermeasures. You slam the button. We cut to slamming
Always
the
with
button.
the fist.
Mm-hmm.
We cut to the flares coming out. And what's crazy about flares is that ultimately it's a fingers crossed thing.
Yeah.
You're just shooting on a fuck ton of flares, and you hope that one collides with the missile. So then there's always
In this
that
movie, though,
tension.
they're the instant win button.
Right, but every
You only
time
get it
it's
2 times though. You get 2
Yeah.
extra lives in Top Gun Maverick.
That's a great point. Yeah,
Yeah.
two
It's
shield
Uh-huh.
points.
it's dialogue call out. It's insert shot of hitting the button. It's a of the flares coming
Yep,
out.
yep, yep.
Cut to wide, impact with the SAM. Cut to hyper wide, and everybody is screaming, and you're like, there is no end to this. There is no beginning, and there's no end.
Mhm.
Way water.
It's
True. So true.
it's perfect. And what makes that sequence, the crescendo of that sequence, Mav getting hit so incredible is not only does it happen in a second, and it's so cool as he's pirouetting up behind Goose, but what is so smart about the Dark Star sequence at the beginning is that it establishes the fake out death. You think the character of Maverick Mitchell gets one fake out death, and you think just for a second that maybe he dies in the Dark Star, but obviously he doesn't. But then
Be a
I
much different
think-
movie.
I think you really feel that there's a chance that he's actually dead after he gets shot down by Rooster.
Yeah,
Because it
absolutely.
feels like it completes a character arc. It
Yeah.
feels like it's the fake out they can't get away with. But then they do, and you realize that you've got an even, arguably, maybe an even better action sequence waiting for
Possibly.
Dude.
Yeah. I do want to talk about one of the elements of this film that I think sets it so far above most action cinema, and that's how focused this film is. There's a lot of characters, there's a huge ensemble, there's a lot going on, but except for that Dark Star sequence at the beginning, every sequence of this film is building the hype and the intention around this trench run sequence. And we've got these practice runs, and we've got the simulations, and we've got them talking about the simulations, and we've got talking John Hamm about, what can we do with this, and changing the time limit, and how the time limit in each checkpoint, whether they need to hit this, and the SAMs, and how low it's going to be, and the valley, and the bridge, and the
Yep.
and the hitting the bomb, and the laser's off. Whoa, what's going to with the laser? The movie is so hyper fucking focused on we are going to know this run inside and out that by the point that we get to this, we're like, oh god, it's finally happening. Are
Mhm.
they going to do it? But we also we're clicked in as soon as that stopwatch is started. We're like,
Yes.
okay, they need to do this. They need to go through the valley, under the bridge, up the thing, dodge the missiles, shoot the laser, do the double bombing, make it up, and then survive the SAMs. And then there's another action sequence after that we didn't even conceptualize could even be
No.
possible.
No,
That
okay.
is what I think makes this movie such a special form of action. It's like if the Death Star trench run in Star Wars was the entire movie building up to that, and it was
Yeah.
all okay. We're gonna practice the trench run of the Death Star. We're gonna practice Death Run on Death Star. I'm messing up my words here because I'm talking so fast.
Yeah.
That's our Trench Star.
The Trench Star for the entire movie, and then we get the trench star at the end.
The trench
Yeah.
star.
But that's what Top Gun Maverick is,
Yeah.
and I think it makes it so understandable. It's the most clear form of action storytelling that I've ever seen because it's ostensibly all. It's like all one final action sequence. We're going to prep for the thing, and then we're going to do the thing. That's the entire movie. And I think that's really, really special and very smart.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, Top Gun Maverick ends 4 or 5 times, I think.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
and
ends a lot.
Which might be
each
an
of them
issue.
each of them are awesome. Each of them are maybe better than the last. And Tucker said he was messing up his words. It's because you're just giddy the whole time with like, oh my god, it's happening, it's all happening.
Just so damn
Maverick's
cool.
alive.
I'm
It's just
sweating.
so damn cool.
Maverick's alive. Rooster saves him at the end. He gets shot down. You get the very funny moment. Tucker's freaking out. You get the funny moment where we're running up to Rooster. I'm like, he's packing his chute and everything. We're running up to him. We knock him on the ground. What
Yeah,
the hell
good
were you
moment.
thinking? You told me not to think. And then Maverick just pauses and he's like, good point. And then
There's a
We
part
get the
in there's a part in the Nazi movie where the young kid confronts his older mentor and spits his words back to him, and then is convinces.
anyway,
Timo,
We get the-
momentum killer Nelson.
intentionally derailing. Continue.
we get the F-14 dogfight out of where we are, out of enemy territory. F-14, okay, this plane from the 1980s versus 5th gen fighters. We don't even know what that
Abram-
what that means.
Audio
but we are-
listeners, Abram has stood up and is now
Yeah,
standing behind his chair as he talks and listens to Tanner.
Yeah. We don't even know what 5th gen fighters mean. It's just
Doesn't
another
matter.
one. It was one of those things where we are
They're the
told.
better ones.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's set up multiple times, like the trench run. That is, oh fuck, we're in an even older plane against these 5th gen fighters. But god damn it, it's not the plane, it's the fucking pilot, fellas. And we're in a dogfight all the way out of there. Rooster tells Maverick, we gotta fight our way out of this, okay? We are not running from this. We are facing these motherfuckers down. And we do. We shoot him out of the air. Maverick's the best. We're home free. We're over the ocean. And then one of my favorite sound moment of the film right here. We got another bogey on the radar. Where is he? He's on our nose.
On our nose. Oh.
Boom! Like the super deep bass hit as he like comes off the horizon into the viewfinder of the jet. And then goddamn
These TIE pilot fighter guys, the complete black,
Yeah.
totally faceless. Who
You
the hell
can't-
are they? I don't
That's the
care.
point. No skin tone, no identifying factor at all.
The
No
logo,
flags.
the logo is like a red bird or a hawk or something. It looks like a team logo from Pokemon Go, frankly.
It could be fucking John Wayne in there for all
could-
we know.
But then we are in a steep climb, just trying to buy a few extra seconds for Rooster to eject out of there. But the thing doesn't work. It doesn't work, Maverick. We're it. This is it. He apologizes to Rooster. We're done. We're done for. Hangman, another saving grace. Hangman comes back, and boy howdy, he's good. He's very good.
I am good.
I'm
good.
I am good.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, again, none of this is complicated,
No.
but that's why it's so good. And you might think, is it a little bit of I was gonna say Deus Ex Machina?
I would
That's the
say
game.
no, because shortly
No, that's
before the
correct.
film
It's a real
says
thing.
has a little
Is that
bit
right?
where he sets it up and he's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, let me
Yes.
get out there. I want to go. They need my help. Go." And
We get a
That's-
character arc for Hangman.
That's the thing.
Hangman. Yes.
They know exactly what dialogue, beats, and shots to hit to make everything feel earned.
and they don't spend
And-
too much more time than they need
No.
to on those lines and shots.
Very efficient, yeah.
And that last action sequence, we just get to see Maverick go fucking gonzo mode.
Yes.
And what's cool about Top Gun Maverick
He
is that
surpassed sicko mode. Straight
yeah,
to fuck
he's
up mode.
Gonzo mode.
Gonzo mode.
we see that he's a fucking badass so many times. I adore. Let's make it stronger.
Mhm.
I adore the sequence of him breaking protocol to fly.
Yes,
the
dude.
practice running 215.
That's impossible.
Oh my god.
and
Yeah.
because here's the thing about all of this.
You know he's gonna do it. He's gonna succeed
Yeah.
the moment that's set up.
But
that
you're
scenario.
in the seat. You're
and
like, is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it?
Let's see.
And it comes back to what I've been saying about these timeless, iconic films.
Mm.
That Top Gun Maverick is quite tropey, but there's something fun about that. about the dialogue and the seriousness of some of these deliveries and the quippiness of some of these lines. But there's a sort of prevalent feeling that in a lot of modern cinema, that there's like everything's got to be quippy, everybody's got to be sarcastic, everybody's got to be above the situation they're in. There really is no, well, that just happened in Top Gun Maverick. It is all very earnest to the situation.
There's one moment which I love when the 5th gen fighter like drifts perpendicular to their plane, and Rooster just turns around and he goes, "What the fuck was that?"
It's the F-bomb drop of the movie, and I was like hell fucking yeah when that scene happened.
Fantastically earned.
We only get one F-bomb in our Quest episodes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just
there is no they're right behind me, aren't they? As we're going against the 5th gen fighters. And Tanner, you're right. I think the film's success in part in this sort of action movie tropey thing is it makes me buy into a line of, you're telling me we're getting to a fucking F-14 to fight these 5th gen fighters? I don't know what any of those words mean.
Exactly.
But it's fantastic.
You do at the same time. You know what they you know enough. You know enough.
And it speaks to performance. And I want to talk about
performance. It doesn't speak to your brain, it speaks to your nuts.
But as we're talking about this final action sequence, the moment when we see Tom Cruise cut loose on that first fucking 5th gen pilot, when he cranks the stick and we cut to Rooster flying against the side of the canopy, and then Tom Cruise...
we get insert shots of the ammo counter going.
It's a physical ammo counter. It's not digital. It's not a digital readout. It's a little
all
spinning
analog,
wheels.
baby.
Yeah.
There's a little guy in there turning it down.
Exactly.
Little mouse.
We see him cut him up, and then we just watch for the next several minutes of screen time. Incredibly kinetic and unbelievable action from Tom Cruise. And it speaks something that I really appreciate in action filmmaking, which is a sense that every motion has a weight to it. And as you are watching Tom pull back the throttle or split the throttle and the plane is flung back behind that 5th gen, it all is so believable because you understand that Tom Cruise is wrestling against that throttle to pull it back. And you get so locked in. It's so good.
It's so good.
And I think what's great about it is it paints Tom Cruise, and we'll get a little bit iffy again. Maybe 10x we're gonna talk about themes and talk about some politics stuff for just a second.
Oh Lord, okay, here we go.
I think what's great about the construction of these characters as American military machismo guys is that there's also, as we've been espousing, a real emotional core to them, so their masculinity never becomes overly traditional in the way that you would connote with a lot of action heroes. I think part of what makes that sequence so effective and then them landing is that it is two men showing emotion to each other and having their lives in each other's hands, but still being these fucking badasses with 80s-esque dialogue and this crazy action unfolding. It hits those character points so perfectly at the same time that it's perfectly hitting action cues and little insert shots. God, it's so good. Gotta sit back down.
It's because Tom Cruise knows exactly what he's doing here, okay? Tom Cruise is a storied...
This is Tom Cruise's shtick.
He's a storied veteran of action cinema. He is the great American movie star, and he's got more movies after this, and this is his swan song essentially. This is him recognizing who he is, his legacy, his iconic role in Top Gun, what it means for generations of people. He's bringing it back around in another iconic role, in an iconic moment, and he understands where he needs to take this character, where he needs to take his stardom. He does need to retire it. He's not going to retire, mind you, not anytime soon. But he understands what the character arc would be for someone in that position.
You could say that Tom Cruise is in his place. He's in his spot.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Tanner, he's got a fucking ravine to jump into off of a motorcycle.
That's very true. He does.
And Reckoning Part 1, can't wait. Now, here's an underrated element of this film that I noticed a lot when I was watching it the first time.
Okay.
But it's not actually that underrated. I've heard people praise it before, but I'm saying that just for shits and giggles.
Oh, why not?
The score of this film, I think, is really interesting because it is such a good study in how to use musical cues that are repeating motifs throughout the film that are the Top Gun theme, which is great, and we get those bells at the beginning, dun 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 dun. That's great. That comes a few times throughout. But we also have both the Lady Gaga song, "Hold My Hand," and can you stop doing
Sorry.
that?
I was just giving you the backing track.
We've got "Hold My Hand" and we've got "Highway to the Danger Zone," to the iconic song
Kenny
from this
L.
movie and the iconic song from the first movie that are not only played actually in this film in their song versions with the covers and whatever, but also the motifs of those songs are worked into the orchestral score of the film in really interesting ways. And when I hear the musical cues of "Highway to the Danger Zone," it's like bum 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 bum. I like it, but it's like really slow and it's like building motion. I'm like, hold on, did I hear that right? Is that actually like super hyper slowed down orchestral "Highway to the Danger Zone"? But it works so well because I associate that with Top Gun because of the way that this movie has set that up. And on an inverse way, the musical cues of "Hold My Hand" playing basically whenever Penny's on screen or when there's moments of that, those are worked into the orchestral score. We don't actually hear that song until the end of the film. And so when that song plays, unlike so many like late movie credits songs that are nominated for Best Original Song at the Oscars moments, I am primed to recognize that, primed to associate that film or that song with this film. And I know those musical cues so well. And I really love how they've taken songs and worked their motifs into the score in a way that you don't really expect usually out of film. So I think the score of this movie is really smart in its construction.
Yeah.
Here's
I
what
hope
I want to
that
say.
I've portrayed that today.
Here's what I want to say about the score. I think the score is really good. I think that these classic tunes really fit well, like Danger Zone. I mean, bow, bow, it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's too much music in this film, especially when we are not in the flight, when we are not in flight suits, when we are on the ground. And this was my deal about it feeling montagey, and kind of some of my issue with the sound design of the film is, and well, here's the deal. I think that the sound design in the planes is phenomenal. It's excellent. It's really, really good because it captures, it totally just puts us in the seat of the pilot. It makes us believe that we are sitting there and hearing everything that he does, include, beep, 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 like, oh, it's all the good noises of being in a flight in the cockpit. But when we
it's like I'm watching it again right now.
When we get down onto the ground, the sonic complexity and the realism drops away entirely, and we're set with a music bed. When we're in scenes, we get a music bed, and then we get our key important sounds that we need to hear for the story, and then we get dialogue. And there's really no other effects in the world of the film during those moments, or at least that I could hear. And so that, I feel like, contributes to me feeling like it's a montage, because I'm not hearing these like grounding, realistic sound elements when I'm expecting them and when I'm hearing them in other parts of the film. And so I wonder, was it a budget thing? Like, since they had to spend so much, they probably had to spend a huge amount of time working on the fighter pilot sounds. So did they just kind of let the other parts roll, or did they make a creative choice to not fill in those moments with as much sound as I feel like they should be? I feel like we just need a little more. I need a little more realistic sounds to tell me that I'm not watching like a series of events blend together, but I'm watching a real life continuous scene that happens without cuts. We don't time jump around sound. I think we can use sound to clue in time jumps, and by removing sound that bridges two different areas of film temporal land, if you will, it makes it kind of hard to understand like where we are in time and space.
Yeah.
You make an interesting point, Timo, and I think about that in the context of "Hold My Hand," which I think is paid off at the end in a way that almost you associate the instrumental portion of the track with this budding but complicated relationship between
Penny.
between those two. You don't get the vocals until they're actually finally together and they're kissing in front of a sick car on a runway, right? And so,
in
but
like a
what's
super like posed shot. Like, I really like how.
What's interesting is that instrumental bed moves from Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly onto the aircraft carrier. We see the waves in the bow of the ship with that bed still on there. So Timo, I think you're right that it creates this almost like smudge between sequence, the use of sound. But I also think that it's sort of just a way to convey simply where we're supposed to be and where characters are on like a higher level, not necessarily on a time and space level. And so for me, I think that's effective. But I think what's also effective is just the utilizations of sound that accentuate a scene. For the moments that I feel like they smudge, I think there's a lot more that accentuate. And when I think about, and one of the moments from the film that stands out the clearest in my mind is as we're preparing to do the attack.
Mm.
And you just hear, because we haven't talked about it yet, Hans Zimmer's portion of the score. And it's going bump bump, just these drums, these heavy gut like drums you feel in your gut. And we get dagger attack, and we get all of this just simple cut to the point military dialogue, and it's heightened by these drums underneath going bump 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 bump. I think music does a great job of preparing us for action and putting us in the headspace of characters, even if it might lack some more clarity in other sequences.
Yeah. I want to talk about music that is not the orchestral score. It's needle drops, which is not something that we get to typically talk about in Best Picture reviews, but
True.
we get two good ones, one that is good and one that I think is an all-timer for me personally. The good one is, of course, the originally written, as I understand it, I Ain't Worried by One Republic during the beach scene. Fun moment, fun like summer poppy radio hit song. Totally 100% works for that scene. Love it. But Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who over that first day of training. Dude, when they sync up Maverick fucking threading the needle between those two planes to Roger Daltrey going, yeah,
Great moment.
I am floating in my seat. Okay, I'm levitating about 6 feet above the floor when that happens.
That's awesome. I think
Yeah, I saw it.
isn't
It's crazy.
Isn't like the message about that song though, like about the Vietnam War and about how
Yeah, it's about the 60s
Okay.
and and the tumultuous times and how you won't get the wool pulled over your eyes by a government again in this propagandist film. But hey, I digress.
I'm going to choose to not make that connection.
Don't think about it. Sweet guitar riffs, screaming, hell yeah, planes, cool stuff.
Yeah, I used that song in a Vietnam War memorial project that we had to do in high school English class, and I think that my use of it was extremely questionable too. So whatever.
Hey, listen, man.
It's a great needle drop, and you're very right about that.
They use Creedence Clearwater Revival in every Vietnam War movie when they hated the Vietnam War. I think it's fine, okay? I think we're okay. But, I mean, all I have left in my notes is, like, just lines that I wrote down that make me pump my fist in the air every time they happen.
Give me some of them, Tanner.
Okay, well, if we want to work backwards to the film, we talked about the coffin corner scene when Maverick gets shot down, and we cut back to John Hamm, and when his voice cracks when he says there's nothing they can do for him now. I'm like, oh, they made me feel for fucking Cyclone. They made me feel for whatever that dickhead. Speaking of dickhead, jumping ahead a little bit, when we're doing that training montage and we understand who Hangman is, he'll always leave you out hanging out to dry. And he says, "Phoenix, where is he? He's trying to find Maverick," and she just leans into her mic and she goes, "I'm dead, dickhead."
Dickhead. Yeah. Great moment.
Let's see. Similarly, when Maverick comes back and Warlock says, "It can't be."
That is so cheesy. It's so cheesy.
Corny. It's so earnest, though. Oh, fuck. I love that moment. Oh, man. Heartbreaking moment when Maverick's talking to Rooster when they're having their big confrontation after the bird strike. And he says, there'll be no wife to mourn you when you burn in. Just the moment where he's unloading all this trauma that he has associated with Goose on Rooster. And that's not a fair moment, but that's what he's doing. They have all this trauma associated with this person that they lost. Love that. Let's see. Does anyone else have any favorite lines from this as we sort of wrap up here? Favorite moments? Anything else that we can just be like, oh man, that was a great moment.
I do.
I got
No,
one.
I want to give some love. The moment where I was like, oh yeah, this is a hilarious and awesome moment was after the Dark Star crash and he wanders into the
Yeah.
like Idaho, Montana town, and all the farmers are like, what? Like, and then he looks like a spaceman. I just think it's
Yeah.
funny. I think that's
And the
great
kid says,
comedic setup.
Earth. Quick one. The one I was looking for was when he hits Mach 9. It's when he hits Mach 9. And the one, I don't know the character's name. I'm sorry, but he goes, "He's the fastest man alive." He sells that line. You're like, he's the fucking fastest man alive. Pete goddamn Maverick Mitchell, fastest man alive.
Mach 10 is pretty damn fast. The Dark Star sequence is really fucking cool. I mean, it's I think a great way to set the tone for the movie. And a nice way, since the movie does not have us flying in the modern jets for most of it, it allows us to get to see some cool, badass tech, and it's really good advertising for Lockheed Martin.
Abram, Tucker, favorite moments. Give them to me. I want to remember.
So there's a really touching one that I'd like to talk about in a little bit larger sense, just being a moment. But it's when we visit Iceman.
Yeah. I can't. We didn't talk about that. I can't. Thank you for bringing this up, Abram.
I think this is a really special part of the film for a number of reasons, and I think it speaks to the film's practical element. It speaks to the commitment that this cast and crew had to doing Top Gun Maverick right. I think that the inclusion of Val Kilmer, who at that time was struggling for his life with throat cancer, giving him such a thoughtful and emotionally rich sequence that didn't attempt to do anything, didn't attempt to film him from behind and use like AI voice modulation or anything, that just presented Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise having a sentimental moment together. I thought that was incredibly powerful and a beautiful, beautiful scene between two actors with history and men that were at very different points in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a testament to how sparse but effective the dialogue is here, that we can simply read a couple lines from Val Kilmer on a screen and get so much out of them. I think that's wonderful. And I think the ways that it brings Tom Cruise close to tears is fantastic too. You get so much off of each other. And then to end it with the one last thing, who's a better pilot, me or you? It's like, it's a great moment. I don't want to ruin it.
The rivalry is still there. You know, they've grown, they've aged, they've progressed in their lives, but the rivalry is still there, and it's beautiful.
And they hug and the scene ends. I thought it was so tasteful, and I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it was incredibly effective.
Yeah, and bringing him back, you know, it is a bit morbid to say, but you know, that's an element of the film's sort of take on mortality. You know, it is that Iceman dies shortly after that in the film. This is the last time that Maverick sees him, and it's a reminder to him that it's another thing in his life that's gone, I guess, and it gives him more to care about. It's also like his last like line of connection and hope of like staying in the Navy, because we have said we've been told that Iceman's the one who's like kept him in this whole time. Otherwise, he would have been kicked out a long time ago. And that friendship is there, that connection is there, but also the recognition that these guys are like, we ain't got much time left, but boy howdy was it a ride, and boy howdy did we have a good friendship, a good connection. Did we make a lot of great memories together this whole time? And Maverick still gotta go out and do the mission, and he's afraid for not only his own life. You know, he's kind of a man with a death wish, but the life of Rooster. That's what they got called in to talk about, is does he let the kid do the mission? And Maverick says he's not ready, and Iceman's like, hey man, you can't hold him back just because you're afraid, and you're afraid for him.
Yeah, very good moment. Very good utilization of an actor who is disabled in that moment. He doesn't have the full acting capabilities of using his voice, but they're able to give him more line delivery through a typing program on a black screen. How does that work? I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I really do like that they were able to recoup the last character from that original movie. I mean, him and Iceman are the only characters that return, and Iceman only for 3 minutes, if that. But for me, my favorite side moments that none of you guys have touched on yet are the ones that come with our supporting cast of extra pilots. I think that they're what endear me so much to this world and make it believable because, yeah, Rooster, the drama between Rooster and Mav and the romance between Mav and Penny, like these are tropey, they're ridiculous, but I think it's that because they're surrounded by a bunch of similarly tropey, but I think more earnest characters, that really makes me want to be in this group of characters. It's being in the bar for the first time and be like, "What's your call name?" Bob. No, I know. Like, what's your real call sign? No, it's just Bob. Or the moment when Hangman throws Mav out under the sand, and then he comes back and they realize he's a teacher, and they put their heads in their hands. Like, there are so many good moments between this cast of characters that I feel their camaraderie. I feel their tensions. I like when Phoenix and Hangman are learning that Rooster was Goose's son, and that Goose and Mav had this history together, and that comes to a really great head in the moment when Hangman and Rooster have a fight, and Hangman sort of insults Goose or does something, and then they get up, and we get this great shot of everyone holding the two of them apart as they're like struggling to get at one another. The supporting cast, I think, is another underrated element of this film because I care about Hangman and Fanboy and Payback and Bob and Phoenix. Like, these are characters that have 15 minutes of screen time, I don't know, maybe total. Like, they're pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but they contribute to this is a team effort. We're all competing against one another, but we know we need to just get this done, and the best person for the best role, whether that's Bob in the back with the laser or Hangman hanging back because Rooster's really the one that has the skill to do this. That is a really big element of this movie, is that group dynamic, and it's nowhere better portrayed than when they're all having fun on the beach. And I'm like, yeah, this is a great cast. There's a lot of like M tier characters like around them that we never learn anything about, but even their presence, and then we got the smaller cast, and then we got the core cast, and we got our main characters. I really like the balance they struck between that, because another problem that I have with that first film is it really is just Goose and Maverick and sometimes Iceman, and like those are the only characters that you know at all in that first movie. But like I can name like 10 characters from this movie, and like that's a win.
Okay, I'll wrap up like my straggling things.
As Tanner is straggling to wrap up, why don't you pull up your score sheets?
Tucker, you brought up the moment of
up already.
Of our hotshot students putting their head in their hands when they realize they fucked with the professor. And a great moment alone, but also a callback to the original when Goose and Maverick realized that the woman that they were hitting on at the bar was their instructor. Love that. Love that he buzzes the tower again. It's an iconic thing from the first one. It's at the very end. He still gets to buzz the tower on the old fuddy-duddy flight professor, John Hamm. What else? Oh, Ed Harris's one scene when he's basically like when he's telling us, he's conveying a theme of the movie. It's like, you're done, Maverick. You're finished. I was able to like quote that scene. I was surprised how many like lines I remembered from that. Your kind is heading for extinction, Maverick. And he's late at the last thing he says is like, the future is coming, Maverick, and you're not in it.
He's the drone ranger.
So corny.
He's like the Lone Ranger, but he's got his drones.
And Ed Harris is just so good at that as like he's like grizzled, and he's like, I've had enough of your shit, goddammit, Maverick.
You blew up my $2 billion Dark Star plane.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God. What fantastic film, huh? Just a stellar film.
Very curious to see what score Tanner gives it. Is it what I think it's gonna be? Is it what I think it's
Tanner,
gonna
type
be?
in your score.
Okay.
My score's in.
My
There's a
score's
bit
not
of a
in.
motif throughout the film that'll clue you into my score. The mock that Maverick hits, the G's that they pull going into Coffin Corner, that sort of thing. 10.3.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, boom. Whoa!
Yeah. Look at this.
That's a big score. We gave this film a 9.6 because 3 of the people on this panel gave it a 10.0. I gave it an 8.5.
God, that's so low.
and I was wondering. I didn't want to jinx it. I didn't want to say anything. It was like, is this gonna come in right at the end and
Yeah.
take over everything everywhere all at once? And it did.
It did.
And listen, all great films this year, as we said at the beginning of this video. All fantastic films this year.
But we have a new number one, because a 9.6 is going to have to be the best score on the list, beating Everything Everywhere All at Once and pushing everything else down one spot. So we've got a new number one. That's pretty surprising. I didn't think this was going to happen today. I'll say I can give you my thoughts on why I kind of.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I think that this is a really fun movie to talk about and think about in a blockbuster world, because it does so much of this action flick blockbuster cinema way better than most stuff. But we are in a non-action canon. Usually we're in a character and theme and plot based world when we think about these kind of films. And I just think that Top Gun doesn't communicate these ideas as well as these other films communicate them. And, you know, we can't discount the pluses that it gets for all the action and for all the fun stuff. But I find that I'm a little lacking in character and I'm a little lacking in theme. And the plot it works because it's driving our action forward. But beyond that, it's just there. And so I think that all the fun and awesome stuff about this movie still exists, but in my mind, as like a best picture winner, possibly, it's not. It's just not quite
possibly.
as.
Let's be real.
Yeah, well, it's just not. It just doesn't really measure up to these other cinematic feats, even though it is a cinematic feat unto itself.
Yeah.
Timo, I think that's interesting. And as I give my closing statement, I think about this film a lot in conversation, particularly with Titanic, wherein I think that you're totally right. And a lot of the things I usually harp on in our Quest reviews are things that are largely, not entirely, but largely absent from the forefront of my praise of Top Gun Maverick. But I think it's a testament, like Titanic, to how you can do your character work in a sparing way, but you can lead with your ability to create on a form level a piece of cinema that is so exemplary that it deserves to go above. And what it lacks is, in my opinion, similar to Titanic, an issue of lacking, not an issue of having distinct flaws. And to me, that's the difference. I think that Top Gun Maverick hits all the notes it needs to when it comes to character and plot.
I think
and theme. It doesn't move beyond them.
It succeeds in everything it sets out to do.
Yeah, and it doesn't go beyond those points because it's focused elsewhere. And I think that focus elsewhere is a level of commitment to practical filmmaking that is so unparalleled. And I also think that when we talk about a Best Picture winner also needing in part kind of a narrative behind it, I do think that the narrative of Top Gun Maverick being held and not going to Paramount Plus and being heralded as it was at that Oscars luncheon by Steven Spielberg to Tom Cruise as being in part pivotal in saving the movie theater experience, the theatrical experience, giving Val Kilmer that moment. I do think that there's a lot that surrounds this and gives Top Gun an incredible narrative behind it. I also, unfortunately, don't think it has a chance of winning.
No.
Although I do personally feel, in my uneducated Oscars opinion, that if something were to beat Everything Everywhere, it would be this. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think that the film and the story around it are quite incredible.
Tucker, do you have closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think that as I look at this Best Picture lineup, and the reason why, unquestionably, in my mind, this is the greatest Best Picture lineup I've ever seen in my favorites version, but also because this is the most diverse I think we've ever seen. We haven't gotten a lot of 10 picture lineups, especially not in the last 70 years. But the fact that we get such a diverse lineup of films here, and almost all of them, or basically all of them, in our opinion, in our analysis of all these, are hitting such incredible highs, I think is a testament to what the Oscars are becoming. Last year was a lot of drama stuff. You got your King Richards, you got your Power of the Dogs. These are pretty stock standard what you expect out of being in the Oscars. But this year, I guess maybe Women Talking is that, Tar because it's Elvis because it's kind of a biopic. But each of these films does something so different from what you usually expect, and they're so different in and of themselves. This is competing against Tar, And these two movies are both 10 out of 10s in my heart. They
Mhm.
could not be more different in terms of tone, in terms of character, in terms of what they bring to the cinematic experience. And Top Gun Maverick is what action cinema can be in the modern times. It is using modern technology to completely, in my mind, obliterate what that first movie did. This is better characters. It's a better character dynamic or and growth for Maverick. He's a more interesting person. The actors have grown, and the fact that we are able to film dogfights like this and trench runs like this and explosions like this, and who the hell knows how much CGI is involved or practical? I don't know because it's done so
I
well.
think the thing about that is that they're not going to release behind the scenes footage of the CGI because
They don't want you to know.
they don't want you to know, and I'm
Yeah.
perfectly pleased to not. I'm happy. My ignorance
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
very blissful.
But I think that the fact that they do it so well is just a testament to what real quality action filmmaking can be with modern technology. And I think it also applies to Avatar: Way of Water, two films that I think completely surpass what we've seen in the past. And this being in our best picture lineup is not something outside of, I guess, Mad Max Fury Road that we've seen in like the last 20 years. Like Avatar movies, Mad Max, and this, like that. And it just goes to show you what a film of this quality can do, of surpassing, like, hey, blockbusters can now be up in the awards conversation. I think that's real. Oh, I forgot that even happened. To be 100% honest. 100% honest, I totally forgot that happened.
Yeah.
But I think Top Gun Maverick is one of the greatest film experiences I've ever seen. It's firing on all cylinders. And for me, it has to be a 10 out of 10 because it made me feel emotions and think about what cinema can be in ways that no other action film of that's not true. Spider-Man: No Way Home is the better movie, but very few action films of the last few years have done. I'm not joking when I say that. By the way.
I know you're not, and that's
Why we're all silent about it afterwards.
But Douglas, it's just funny that you keep saying it when you're saying I love this movie, but also Spider-Man: No Way Home specifically.
I just want to be
better.
clear. Yeah, I just want to be clear.
If I can put a bow on this whole thing, I'd like to say that I agree with mostly everything that's been said. Speaking of the Spider-Man: No Way Home comment, but
Oh, come on, that's a 10 out of 10 movie for you too.
it is too. I love that movie.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about it, is that we talk about all these things about Top Gun Maverick saving cinema, about how it's a paragon of what action cinema can be. And that's true. And it's so much different from other Best Picture nominees or Best Picture winners that we've talked about. But there is no one true measuring stick for how great a film is. And it's a variance of degrees. What it comes down to, though, is, I love a film that can make me think, but I have to give even more credit to a film that can make me feel, okay? Yeah. That's what cinema's all about. That's what Tom Cruise would tell you if you went there opening night and you saw him talking to you, or when we went again for this Best Picture showcase. He's still there. He's still welcoming you in to the cinematic experience that is Top Gun Maverick. And it is such a breath of fresh air. It is a singular vision of creativity, of being a legacy sequel. It is a singular technical achievement that comes in at 2 hours and 10 minutes. If I weren't
Blissful
thinking about it,
runtime. Perfect
and you
runtime.
asked me how long this movie was, I'd say, I don't know, 2 hours 40, about 3 hours maybe. No, it gets all of this done in such a compact time frame, and that is so compelling, so damn compelling. When we have, another film that I love, Avatar: The Way of Water, again, saving cinema, paragon of action, all this stuff, coming in at 3 hours and 10 minutes. And so I give the edge to Top Gun Maverick in that sense. I give the edge to Top Gun Maverick in everything that it does, because I have a connection to the first Top Gun movie. It's a movie that my mom loved. It's a movie that we watched together multiple times. She's the one that kind of got me into movies by showing me all these 80s classics that she loved. And now look where we are. We are 30-some years removed from the release of that film, and I, now a full-fledged movie lover, a cinephile, if you will, who my movie tastes have now nothing in common with the movie tastes of my mom. But I can bring this movie home on Blu-ray, and I can say, hey, they made a new Top Gun, and I can sit my family down at Thanksgiving and watch this thing, and we can all feel the same thing when we watch it. And that's what's magic about it. That is what is so wonderful to me about this film and about the cinematic form as a whole. Timo, can you read off the top 10 of what we have here.
The Backlot Banter 2023 Oscar nominations 10. Right here, starting from the top. Top Gun Maverick. Shouldn't it be at the top? It begins. It does start with top.
Ooh, yeah, feels good.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We got Bottom of Sadness at the bottom.
Yep, spoiling a little
Triangle
bit.
at bottom.
Followed by Everything Everywhere All at Once at number 2. Then at 3, All Quiet on the Western Front. 4, Tar. 5, The Fablemans. 6, The Banshees of Inisherin. 7, Avatar: Way of Water. 8, Elvis. 9, Women Talking. And 10, Triangle of Sadness. And you know
Very
what?
happy with this.
The cinema's back, and the Academy Awards tell us a lot about what is the America's thinking and what movies are thinking. And I think that this year just has it's good. I
So
am
healthy,
good.
man.
That's what when we ask, hey Hollywood, how are
very
you
good.
doing? I am good. I think that's doing fine. I think this year has these nominees really indicate to me that they're figuring it out. Still rocky, the Coda win last year, the streaming upsets. I think cinema's gonna be all right.
And Top Gun Maverick makes me feel that way. It
We're
does.
we're not done with our Oscars coverage. We've got one more video coming up. Well, 2 actually, because we're gonna do a video about the rest of the ceremony, about the other nominations and awards. So keep your eyes on the subscribe on your subscription feed. Make sure you hit the notification bell to get a little message when we upload that. But then we, of course, will cover whichever film the Academy picks as the real Best Picture winner. And we will be adding one of these 10 films to our gigantic list of 94 other Best Picture winners.
Holy moly.
And then we're back on the grind. We have 8 films left in the
Yes.
core
Correct.
quest for the bestest.
A mere couple weeks, 2 months or so, when we'll be done. Man. Well,
And it'll be like basically exactly when we're graduating, boys. That's a crazy coincidence.
It lined up.
Every delay and skip has lined up to this.
It is. It's the gods of Quest have written it.
Gods of Random Chance.
The gods of random chance are on our side. Thank you all for joining me. What a fun discussion and a fun movie. We'll be back with the Oscars predictions for all those other crazy awards that we don't talk about most of the time.
Yeah.
Until then, make sure you hit the bombs on the right location if you're trying to blow up anything. And peace.
They were born just a few years after the movie came out.
Old.
We have just one thing to say to that.
You know, that was fucking funny.
1 second, hang on. Can you just give me 2 more seconds? I just need to turn this thing and then we can begin. I'm literally copying it over as we speak.
You're copying?
Copying, pasting the thing, saving, ensuring that it's all there.
Please do not press any buttons.
Make suring.
Saving. Do not turn off your system.
Research and citations. Why is it giving me a 0? Oh, that's not good.